Divorce me.
Fine, but I'm not paying any alimony. You don't have a job, do you? Are you sure you're going to be okay without money?
Protecting my own happiness is way more important than money. I don't want to stay in this house, and I definitely don't want to live with a guy like this. I'm absolutely gonna divorce him and make sure he gets what he deserves. My name is Julie. I was born and raised in the countryside. I'm 58 years old, and I love foraging for wild plants when the weather warms up. I love the peaceful countryside air, but there was a time in my life when I hated it. Back then, I was in my 20s. After high school, I got a job at a local department store, a job that only top graduates were recommended for. I think I lived a somewhat more glamorous life than other people my age. One day, my boss told me
A special customer is coming.
I was assigned to take care of him. That customer turned out to be my husband, Jake. Jake's family had once produced a congressman, and though he wasn't a direct descendant, his family was still running several businesses in the area. Jake was set to take over the family and its business, and he had a lot of influence locally. However, even if they ran several businesses in the area, it was still a competitive world with lots of rival companies. In the city, he'd probably just blend in. Still, Jake was, so to speak, like the king of the local area. Because I was assigned to guide him around the store, he took a liking to me. People around me would say,
You're gonna marry rich.
I'm so jealous.
Your future's secure.
and so on, but I wasn't happy at all. Jake's family, the Timberlake family, had influence in the area, but they also had a lot of bad rumors. They were said to be arrogant, to fire employees they didn't like on a whim, and to secretly make several of the cute female employees their lovers. I didn't know whether any of this was true, especially being just an ordinary girl who had just graduated high school. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I figured there had to be at least some problems. Back then, Jake's approach was relentless, no, more like passionate. He would often park his car outside my workplace and wait for me to get off. He gave me bouquets of flowers, took me to fancy restaurants, treated me to dinner, and tried all sorts of ways to express his interest in me. As we spent more time together, I started to think.
There are a lot of rumors about his family, but maybe he's actually a decent guy?
And we started dating. That eventually led to marriage. Right after we got married, my in-laws gave us a house. It was a wedding present, they said. The wedding gifts I knew were much more modest, so I couldn't help but be surprised. Watching Jake accept it as if it were trivial made me feel once more as though we inhabited entirely different realms. I never imagined that this house would end up being a house of horrors. After I started living under the same roof with Jake, my mother-in-law began visiting us frequently. She didn't really have a reason to visit, she just came over and complained about my father-in-law all day. Apparently, she was really dissatisfied with him. He didn't care about her, he wasn't appreciative, and she would even bring up fights they had 10 years ago. Her list of grievances went on and on. It wasn't just against my father-in-law, she'd complain about the driver's way of speaking, the company secretary's attitude, even the way the neighbors dressed. She always found something to grumble about. Listening to that kind of talk over and over was stressful. I had quit my job at the department store when I got married because I was told,
A Timberlake wife working outside is a disgrace, even if it's just helping at the company.
so I had no way to avoid my mother-in-law's visits. At first, she only came over on weekdays when Jake wasn't around, but gradually she started coming over on weekends too. That was probably where things started to go wrong. Even though we were newlyweds, Jake began staying out more often. My mother-in-law doted on him. When it came to his marriage, she was very strict, saying,
If she's not someone who meets my standards, I won't approve.
I wasn't highly educated, wasn't from a good family, nor was I good at housework, but she liked my face and the fact that I knew my place. The wife of a Timberlake son shouldn't be an attention-seeking woman. Apparently, Timberlake women should always walk 3 steps behind their husbands. I guess I wasn't too flashy either, and she liked my traditional features. It was the first time my simple facial features, which I had always been self-conscious about, were an advantage. And my attitude. I was just scared to act like myself around someone from such an influential family, but she took it as me knowing my place. Because of that, even now, I can't say, "Mom, I've heard that complaint from you before." 6 months into the marriage, Jake hardly came home, and I began to wonder if I had married him or his mother. Then, I found out he was cheating. One night, Jake came back home in the company car, and I happened to see from the window as he kissed a woman sitting in the back seat before she got out. The driver didn't seem fazed at all. As soon as they were done, he casually drove away, like he'd seen it all before.
Hey! What was that just now?
Of course, I confronted Jake, who was acting all nonchalantly when he came in. We hadn't even been married for a year, and he was already cheating. He had pursued me so intensely before we got married. His reaction was nothing like what I had expected.
Don't make a fuss over 1 or 2 women. Just get dinner ready.
He walked quickly towards the living room, loosening his tie, and I was speechless. He wasn't even trying to hide it, he was just brazen about it.
Wait. Explain yourself. Who was that woman?
Stop yelling. She's someone from work, a new hire, so I'm helping her out.
You're an executive, aren't you? It's not your job to take care of new hires. What exactly are you helping her with?
I'm tired. Just shut up.
With that, he forcefully shook off the hand I had grabbed him with. He pushed my shoulder hard, and I fell back onto the floor.
Cool off. I'm annoyed, so I'm gonna take a bath.
He shot me a cold glance before actually heading off to the bath. The sound of the shower echoed emptily through the house, and I regretted with all my heart ever marrying this man. The next day, my mother-in-law came over as usual, but she was clearly in a foul mood, and the first thing she said to me was,
Julie, sit down there.
What?
Before I could react, the secretary who had entered the room with her forced me down onto the chair.
What's going on here?
Yesterday, you yelled at Jake when he was tired from work, didn't you? Is that how a wife should act?
How did you? But he was kissing another woman in front of our house. Isn't it natural to ask what was going on?
Jake told me to discipline you. Honestly, if you're gonna be a Timberlake wife, you should at least tolerate 1 or 2 women on the side.
You're telling me to forgive him for cheating, to turn a blind eye.
Even the king of old kept many women. That's what it means to have power.
I couldn't accept this. This family is just messed up.
Enough. I'm gonna divorce Jake.
The moment I said it, tears started to fall for the first time. Despite everything, I still had feelings for him. I never imagined that I'd be betrayed like this and end up choosing to leave, not on our wedding day. However,
You think I'd allow that? What kind of nonsense are you spouting?
the intensity of my mother-in-law's rage made me shrink back. After a long sigh, she pulled out her phone and made a call.
Hello. Yes, I'm sorry, darling. Can you come home for a moment? Is now okay? Yes, yes. Understood.
After hanging up, she glared at me and said,
We're taking you to our house.
I resisted, but the secretary dragged me out and forced me into the car, taking me straight to my in-laws' home. To be precise, I was taken to the shed at my in-laws' home. Shortly after we arrived, my father-in-law appeared. It seemed the person my mother-in-law had called was him.
Julie, I hear you said you want a divorce?
He sneered at me.
Yes.
Sorry, but we can't allow that. We can't have the scandal of a Timberlake man being abandoned by his wife.
I don't care about that.
The moment I tried to argue, he grabbed my hair.
Listen, the words of Jake and me are absolute. You have no right to refuse. Cool your head until you understand that.
He let go of my hair roughly, causing me to fall back for a moment.
Let's go.
He said, and my mother-in-law simply said,
Do your duty.
and left the shed with him. I realized I'd been locked in when I heard the door being locked. I pounded on the door, shouting to let me out, but the person who seemed to be the secretary just said,
I can't do that.
through the door, ignoring everything else. 12 hours later, after being locked in that stifling shed in the middle of summer, I was finally released. When I was already worn out, my mother-in-law handed me a bottle of water and said,
Have you cooled down?
Drinking the water so quickly made me feel nauseous, and I had no energy left. Far from cooling my head, I couldn't think about anything anymore. When I was taken inside the house by my mother-in-law, Jake was there with a woman beside him.
Have you learned your lesson, Julie? If you reflect on your actions, I'm willing to forgive you. I still care about you.
Seeing Jake smile kindly made my spine shiver. No way, there's no reasoning with this person.
Oh, and by the way, from today, this lady will be living with us too. This is Michelle Miller. Get along, okay?
As I looked at the woman, a memory slowly surfaced in my hazy mind. This was the woman Jake had kissed.
What are you thinking? Why do I have to live with your mistress?
Oh, come on. Are you saying you have a problem with this?
Of course I do. This is messed up. This whole family is insane. Not just you, your mom, your dad, everyone.
At those words, the air in the room froze. I didn't feel like I was wrong at all.
You. How dare you insult not only Jake, but also my husband?
My mother-in-law tried to yell at me, but Jake calmed her down with a,
That's enough. So you said you want a divorce? Do you realize what'll happen to you and your family if you go through with it?
Jake gave me a cold stare, and I glared back at him.
I'll take my chances. Divorce me.
Fine, but I'm not paying any alimony. You don't have a job, so you won't have any money. You sure about that?
He smirked at me. He thought I'd come crawling back if he waved money in front of me. He's probably done this before.
I don't care. Just divorce me.
When I said that, Jake sighed and told his mistress.
Grab the paper from the right side of that drawer.
She quickly got up and handed him the paper from the drawer, just as he instructed.
Here. Dad said if a woman ever gets out of line, use this to threaten her. I've already signed it, so use it however you want.
The paper he handed me was, just as he said, a signed divorce document. Good. With this, I could cut ties with this family immediately.
You'll regret this.
Jake said, but I confidently replied.
I won't, so don't worry.
I dragged my exhausted body to go straight to the government office to submit it.
Wait, not in that miserable state. Even if you're not a Timberlake anymore, it's a disgrace for a Timberlake woman to be seen walking around at night like that. Use our car. I'll have the driver take you.
My father-in-law said. I openly frowned at his words. Was he planning to lock me in the car and take me somewhere? Then, Natalie, the secretary, raised her hand and said,
In that case, I'll go with her.
Since I got married, Natalie had always accompanied me when I went shopping and such. My father-in-law instructed her,
Then you go.
and I decided to get in the car with her, submitting the divorce papers. 2 weeks later, out of the blue, I received a call from Jake, and the moment I picked up, he shouted,
You've got to be kidding me.
What is it? All of a sudden.
Don't play dumb. It was you, wasn't it? Thanks to you, we're losing clients left and right. What are you going to do about it?
Oh dear, I'm glad it's working out just as planned.
I chuckled, and Jake enraged and shouted that he's going to destroy my family's business. Actually, when I submitted the divorce papers, Natalie handed me a pen while we were in the car. The content was footage from the time I was scolded by my mother-in-law about Jake's affair, dragged by the male secretary into the car, and locked in the shed. There was also footage of Jake suggesting his mistress move in with us. Natalie's younger sister was once almost forced to become my father-in-law's mistress, and when she refused, she was fired from one of their group companies. Since Natalie and her sister had different last names due to their parents divorcing and each taking one of them, no one realized they were related, and Natalie had been waiting for her chance to take revenge. Determined not to miss an opportunity, she always carried a small pen camera in her chest pocket.
Julie, what they did to you was far too cruel. I like you because you're kind enough to even thank the secretaries. With this, you should be able to protect your family. You can use it however you like. Please take it.
She said, entrusting me with the data. With this perfect leverage, I contacted a friend who worked at a publishing company. I wanted to bring to light the reality of that household. I'd been planning to do this once I got divorced, but I was grateful to have obtained evidence of the terrible things they did to me. I sold the data to a magazine company, and the cruel reality of their family spread, not only in magazines and newspapers, but also on social media. Since they came from a family that produced a congressman, even though it wasn't a major national company, people were naturally intrigued by the scandalous content, just as I expected.
Seriously, you. Exposing even my parents' affairs. What are you trying to accomplish?
I'm just trying to get rid of all the rot in your family. If your family still had any power left, I'd probably end up having my family destroyed, right? I only took up the sword to protect my family. Got a problem with that?
While listening to my mother-in-law's daily complaints, I learned she had a lover. Originally, it was because my father-in-law had an affair that she sought revenge by having one of her own. My mother-in-law was 68 and seeing a man in his 20s at that time. She seemed to be quite taken with him, buying him all sorts of things. She often said that if it weren't for the restraints of the family, they'd be together already. Unfortunately, she was just a wallet to him. Apparently, he wasn't the only one. My mother-in-law had had many lovers in the past. Despite claiming it was all to spite my father-in-law, she seemed to be enjoying herself quite a bit, so it was 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Thanks to you. Dad's talking about divorcing Mom. This is all your fault.
Oh, isn't it that the Timberlake family isn't allowed to divorce? How small-minded of your father to change his opinion so easily just because he can't handle it.
Shut up. The one who caused this mess shouldn't talk big.
Cause of the mess. Don't make me laugh. It's your parents' fault for cheating all over the place. And also yours, for cheating on me and ending up divorced.
What am I going to do if this family falls apart? I'm the only one who's supposed to inherit this house and business. At this rate, I'll lose everything. Everything.
Gradually, Jake's voice became tearful. Since it was his own fault, I wished he wouldn't cry so pathetically.
If you're so attached to your house and business, then even if everything falls apart, you should just put your effort into rebuilding it. Don't you even think about trying again? Acting like you can't do anything if it's not all in your favor from the start, you're pathetic.
Shut up. You couldn't possibly understand what it's like to have the promised future of being the heir taken away from you.
Do you really think you were the only one expected to be the heir?
Of course I was.
Well, I guess so. You are the only proper son, after all.
What do you mean? I'm an only child. You know that.
No, actually, you have an older half-brother.
What? That's nonsense. What are you talking about?
Right after I divorced you, I hired a detective through my parents' connections. But since your family is well known, I didn't even need a detective, so much information came out easily.
And that somehow means I have a brother? Don't be ridiculous. I've never heard of such a thing.
As Jake got furious, I carefully explained the existence of his brother to him.
But it's true. You remember Angie? The maid in your house, right? Your father had a child with her.
Jake was speechless at my words.
Angie? Her?
I could sense over the phone how Jake, hearing a familiar name, became more engaged in what I was saying.
Apparently, they never even recognized the child because your mother said that she, a legitimate wife, hasn't had one yet. She, who was newly married at the time, was furious. Even after she became pregnant with you, your father was more affectionate to his first child with Angie and openly said that he wanted your older brother to inherit the family. However, that didn't happen, and he had no choice but to have you as the heir with your mother. Your family really is like a soap opera.
Jake let out a small.
No way.
In disbelief. Unlike before, it was clear from his tone that he no longer thought I was making things up.
Now then, here's a question.
What?
Since I suddenly started speaking playfully, Jake reacted in an obviously annoyed voice.
So who really carries the Timberlake blood?
What do you mean?
Well, you were the child your mother had from her affair.
What?
When she found out about Angie's pregnancy, your mother got back at your father by getting involved with the chauffeur at the time. And then, oops, she got pregnant, that's you.
That's impossible.
It's true. Your father doesn't know either, but in my investigation, I found people who knew about the relationship between your mother and your biological father.
That's a lie. It's a lie. I'm the only heir to this family. Otherwise, all my efforts until now were for what?
Jake screamed like a child having a tantrum.
I told you, the real heir is Angie's child. You don't have a drop of your father's blood in you. If you doubt me, go get a DNA test. I'm looking forward to seeing how you, who technically aren't even related by blood, handle that sinking ship of a house. Well, good luck with that. Bye-bye.
I couldn't help the smile spreading across my face as I cheerfully said goodbye to Jake and hung up the phone. He must have been really shocked. He remained silent the entire time. After my leak, scandals about Jake's family became the talk of various other magazines as well. It was revealed that Jake wasn't actually related by blood to the family, that his father had committed tax evasion, and that his mother had verbally abused the chauffeur. With all this coming to light much faster than I had anticipated, Jake's family fell apart, and their business completely shut down. They were known locally as the good-for-nothing family, and now, they all fled the town and live scattered, leading humble lives. Even though their relatives managed to live simply, Jake's face and name became too well known from the magazines, making it hard for him to find a new job. He ordered his former subordinates to help him find work, but no one listened to the words of a now powerless Jake. That too ended up in the magazines, and now he's stuck without any options, basically jobless. His parents got divorced, and without being able to find new jobs, they were also fighting over alimony. They were an ugly family to the end. As for me, I asked to be rehired at the department store where I worked before I got married, and I got the job back. After that, I was determined to never get married again and threw myself into work. I ended up getting promoted steadily, and by the time I was a bit of an older lady, I attended yet another high school reunion, where I hit it off with a classmate who was attending for the first time and ended up getting remarried. No matter how many times others had invited him, he had never come to the reunion before, and he finally decided to join in his 40s. He wasn't great with people, and he was soft-spoken. That unpretentious nature was exactly what made me think he was someone I could truly trust. Thanks to that, this marriage is going really well. My first marriage was full of hardships, but because of that, I learned to judge people better, and it was because I spent some time alone that I ended up meeting my current husband. In that sense, I guess my life isn't so bad. I feel a little bit of gratitude towards Jake too. That's how I feel now.